As a little child, like I was in elementary school, I loved to paint and draw. And that's all I really was interested in. And I got more and more interested in art. And so I always knew art is something I wanted to pursue. And through junior high school in Japan, by the way, I was born and raised in Japan, and I was there until 29. So my whole young childhood was in Japan. And so anyway, I wanted to pursue art. And as I was almost reaching graduating high school, I wanted to submit my entry exam to art school, which I always thought that's a direction I'm going to go. And but when that time came, my father was very adamant that he wasn't going to support me if I would go to art school. And I was, in fact, just devastation beyond. And I asked why he would not support my dream. And he said, how are you going to support your family? If you have a couple of children, if something happened to your husband, how are you going to actually feed your children? Are you able to support yourself and your family with selling your painting? And of course, I had no idea. I was 18. And so he said, you have to get a degree and you got to get a real job. I don't mind you continue art, but not as a career. And I just had no choice. And I was very sad, but I could also understand where he was coming from. So I went to school that he chose, and I became a dietitian. And that's what I did in my 20s in Japan, in Tokyo. I worked in a hospital as a dietitian and also worked in the food industry as a food consultant. But I met a Canadian man when I was living in Tokyo, and we got married. And after 6-7 years passed, my first husband wanted to come back to Canada, so we did. But once we moved to Canada, our marriage didn't survive, and just life changed. And so our marriage broke down. And I kind of lost the direction. But I met my current husband then, and he made a wonderful offer to. He first of all, he persuaded me not to go back to Japan. I should stay in Canada, and because Canada is such a beautiful country. And he asked me if there's any dream that you always had, but if there's such dream you had, and I would like to support that dream. And so I said, wow, this is the first time really. First person ever in my life came into my life that offering that. So I took it, and he said, I always wanted to be a full-time artist, career artist, and would you mind me pursuing that? And he said, go for it. And I remember a drawing that I did at that time, and then I showed it to him. And of course, when I look back now, like, oh my God, But he said, oh wow, this is great. I think you're going to be a one day famous artist. I think you should definitely pursue. But he said to me, there's only one condition that I give you, is to never give up. So I was very touched, and I promised him I would never give up, no matter how long it would take. So he said, I don't care how long it takes, you just don't give up. So I start painting, and I start taking the workshops from artists. I did not go to art school because we live in a remote area called Garden Bay, and it's just not a very possible for me to go to school in Vancouver. So anyway, I kept doing that, and eventually I got noticed by galleries in Greater Vancouver, and I started selling my art through several different art galleries then. And my career kind of started opening up, and then, but I kind of felt a bit of out of touch with customers that I didn't really know who was buying my art, and I kind of felt a little bit disconnected from directly with my customers. And also my husband at the time, he had a job that he was always away, so I was quite lonely. So I decided that I needed a little bit of a change in my life. So my girlfriend suggested that I should open up my own gallery and bring people into my studio. So I said, well, we live in such a remote area called Garden Bay, end of the road, and who is going to come and buy my art? And I'm not known. And so, well, she said, her name is Janet, by the way. And she said, well, you never know until you do it. Let's try. And so we send up a whole bunch of invitations to the community, anybody we could find on the telephone book. And we send out invitation. And we opened first show in my location, my Motoko's Fine Art Gallery. And surprisingly, I had so many people came. I remember the first show was about 250 people came from the community. And I sold most of my art on the first day. And that was a shockingly amazing experience to me. And of course, I couldn't have done that without community support and friend support. But I just felt very blessed that I was able to do that with my husband and friend support and the community support. So that's my story, how I started, and that was 12 years ago, or 13 years ago actually. So I've had my own gallery in Garden Bay called Motoko's Original Fine Art Gallery, and I paint there, I create my work, and I open mostly in summertime because it's a very seasonal area, because it's an ocean, we are facing ocean, and it's lots of boaters come in, and so it's a beautiful summer resort area. So I open during the summer, and then the rest of the year I open by appointment. And but also now I'm here in the Fortune Gallery. I'm having the show. Allison, the owner of the gallery, graciously invited me to do an exhibition in her gallery. So I'm very, very excited to have my first exhibition in Victoria. So yes, so that's how my story, how I became an artist. Well, I started as actually watercolor artist, and because I live in a marine community, I used to do a lot of marine paintings. Like I commissioned people's boats, and they asked me to paint their boats, and I did a lot of realistic paintings, and that was very good because it's a disciplined work, and it's not easy to do, but I enjoyed that time because it's a good training for myself too. But then when I hit 40, I went through my own share of midlife crisis, and I got very depressed, and mainly because my husband was never home. He was away. He's a sailor as his career, so I was quite lonely, and we don't have children together. So, but then I went through all this depression and frustration with my personal life. I suddenly started to feel that I didn't really want to paint somebody else's boat. things that I didn't really care what things look like. I just didn't want to paint realistically anymore. I actually felt that was something I just didn't want to do anymore. And then what I wanted to do was I just really wanted to paint how I felt inside. And that time that I went through depression and midlife crisis was actually worked good for me, because that really made my art evolved, and I became more interested in painting in an abstract form, and different usage of color, more dynamic and bold, and I really didn't really care what other people see in that painting, in a way that I didn't have to express or depict what things look like, because I felt it's all up to viewers' mind how they want to interpret it, and I felt sort of free. I felt sort of free to express myself. And anyway, my art is quite I think, influence because of my culture background as a Japanese. And as everyone knows, Japan has a culture of Zen. People know maybe by Zen garden, Ikebana, flower arrangement, tea ceremony. It's very peaceful and harmonious way of feeling inside, And I've always admired that culture, and it did really deeply influenced, I think, of how I feel about beauty. And so I actually, once I decided to start paint in abstract form, actually that really actually naturally came through. And I realized that I am actually able to create a piece of two-dimensional visual art that people could feel a peace or tranquility inside when they look at my art. And because that's how I wanted to feel. When I was going through a difficult time, I wanted to seek that peace in my art. And that really actually changed my art. And that's how I wanted the viewer to feel. So, and plus, I live in the environment that's natural beauty is so beautiful that I was just blessed with that beauty of nature. And that combines and with my philosophy of that peace and harmony, that actually explains how I paint now. And basically, my goal is to create art that when people see my art, they feel happiness and peace and joy in their lives, in their daily lives. Because we live in such a chaotic world. And that's my way of protesting to this chaotic world. And be kind to others, be compassionate to others. I think that is very important. And I think when people feel that inside, that's how naturally people react to other people and to animals, because I love animals. And we have to care for our environment and nature. And I think to feel that happiness and peace, I think it's very important. And I think art can help that to happen in people's daily lives. Just having that piece of art in their home and give that feeling and energy, I think that's an important role of art, I think. And then that's my goal, to create such art.